Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Stuart Allen Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the very last week of December 2019. And it's almost Happy New Year. So, Happy New Year to
Happy
everybody.
New Year. Mm-hmm. You look happy.
Wait till you find out what 2020 is going to be like.
Uh-oh.
Maybe I'll say something at the end. I don't know. I don't have very much today, because it is a holiday week everywhere. The news hasn't changed very much. So I'll just give you some very few new things that have come up, since all the other things are pretty much stagnant. But one thing that's very important to the people who live in the Pacific Rim, around the Pacific Ocean, for example, there were 3 strong earthquakes along the Ring of Fire. All happened within a 24-hour period. The first one was a magnitude 6 that hit Argentina, followed by a magnitude 6 that hit Colombia and shook up the capital city of Bogota. And closer to your home, 6.3 in the Cascadia region in Canada. And there were many aftershocks in Argentina, Colombia, and northwest Canada. The 6.3 earthquake, which struck off of Vancouver Island, and you may recall that for years they've been warning the people in the western part of British Columbia. That actually is the upper end of the Cascadia subduction zone, and it's the 7th quake in I believe, a 1-week period, and the shaking has alerted seismologists as the region is overdue for a big quake. And again, it's the 7th quake in less than 48 hours.
I think I read even they're up to 9.
By now,
yeah.
Yes. In California, there's a fault line that can produce an 8.0 magnitude earthquake, which began sliding following the Ridgecrest earthquake, which happened this past summer in 2019. And there was a study that was published this past week in the journal Science. It says that there were 20 faults created the Ridgecrest earthquake sequence, and the study found that it's triggering other fault lines as a domino effect, and there's a potential of a multi-fault rupture throughout California.
Wow.
And it goes on to say that 1/5 the length of the San Andreas fault line is the Garlock Fault, which runs along the Mojave Desert in Southern California. And the rupture from the second quake in the Ridgecrest sequence ended only a few miles from Garlock. And there hasn't been a huge earthquake on the Garlock Fault line for about 500 years, so it's really been winding up in there. Now this part, it's kind of humorous, but it really isn't, because it says that California launched the California Earthquake Warning app. Yes, I know that's very funny.
It is funny, I'm sorry.
Wait, it's going to get funnier if you listen, because officials encourage all residents to download the app as a precaution, regardless of how close they live to a major fault, which, like, everybody in California lives close to a major fault line. And it says, there is earthquake risk throughout the state. If earthquakes are large enough, the energy spreads far wider than most people imagine.
I doubt the app is going to work, because it's going to...
Well, listen. Can you just calm down for a minute and let me finish? Could you? Please. Oh, goodness me. And you should not be drinking so much before the podcast. So, how much advance notice users will get will vary depending on the distance from the origin of the earthquake. Wait. I'm sorry.
Maybe you're the one that was drinking before
This is just like really funny. I'm sorry. I really should have been, because listen, those near the epicenter, the page says, this is what the warning will say. Those near the epicenter may feel shaking before they get the alert. Okay, so they're gonna feel before, and then they'll get an alert, and the alert will say, quote, earthquake, expect shaking. They're already freaking shaking, okay? And then it says, drop, cover, and hold
take protective actions. Okay, by the time they get that, they're dead.
All right.
Okay, brilliant, California. Brilliant.
I wonder how many people will download the app.
Does it matter? You'll be dead
But
before
it's
it all
just
activates.
Because it tells you that they're not really thinking to start with.
So it's
obviously.
like duh. Like, do you remember those twins that we knew in Santa Barbara? And there was an earthquake, and I called them and I said, "Did you feel the earthquake?" Like no, like maybe we were like jumping up and down at the time or something. Okay, that's California. I'm sorry, they're doomed.
Okay. Did you see about that hot water that was?
Would
you got that?
Will you let me get to?
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna have to write a note home.
Because I thought that was very interesting. As
Yes,
well.
but I didn't. Okay, listen to me. When I got that link, I was already getting ready. So you have the link. You can please post it.
No, I don't have the link.
You sent it to me, and so I'm just gonna paraphrase because I didn't have a chance to go through before
I
this.
didn't read it. I just sent it to you.
That's the problem. You don't
that looks
read before
interesting.
you send. So according to that article, warm water plus, in other words, water has increased 6 degrees Celsius, which I guess would be like 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I imagine, maybe, off the east coast of New Zealand. And according to and they said it's an area twice the size of Texas, right? So
It was
it's
big.
even
I know. I just saw the picture.
bigger than New Zealand. But here's the thing. It's from global warming and now tropical fish are going to come to New Zealand, blah, blah. Okay, listen to me very carefully, people. If there was global warming, it wouldn't develop in one spot and make one spot in the ocean warm. If it was global warming, the whole ocean would warm up kind of evenly at the same time. So you know what this is, people? I'm sorry, New Zealand, but off your coast, there are huge, gigantic, mega undersea volcanoes erupting.
That's what I figured.
Which is causing that's what happened in Antarctica with all the ice shelves fell off. It's global warming. No, it's volcanoes erupting on the ice shelf because inside Antarctica is the coldest ever. So yeah, there are volcanoes erupting in the South Pacific off the coast. New Zealand, you're in big trouble. And here we go. Just this week, Alaska recorded its coldest temperature
I saw that.
since 2012, minus 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That's global warming, minus 65. That's hot.
I saw minus 70 reported.
Yeah, so that's about minus 50 something Celsius. So even so, once you get that cold,
who cares?
Who even reads the thermometer?
You just want to stay inside.
Last winter here it was like minus 50. It's like who cares? It could be a minus a billion. It was too cold. Anyway, so yeah, goodbye New Zealand, goodbye California. So we'll lose a lot of viewers, but but can I warn them? And this next one I found also a little bit humorous, and you may also, because guess where they found the biggest jerks in America? The state that is the biggest jerk.
I know what state I think they're in.
The new survey says New York. New York is the biggest jerks in America, New Yorkers, and they are the rudest city in the United States. That is a shock.
Not to
I
me.
would never imagine that New York would be rude.
I didn't have to take a survey. I knew this.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Are you talking to me? Yeah. So it also said, guess who the second rudest one?
I don't know.
Los Angeles.
Well,
Yeah, like I'm so sure.
I didn't think they were rude. I just thought they were a little bit airheady.
They're just, they are. Like, oh,
But not necessarily
what
rude.
earthquake? Oh, I was jumping up and down.
Yeah,
oh,
but
come
no.
on, seriously.
New York is.
Anyway, and then that is followed by Washington, D.C., which I thought they're the third rudest.
Yeah, I've never been there.
Which I think these days they kind of should be on the top. And it's followed by Chicago, Boston, Detroit, Buffalo, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. And I can tell you that I have been to all those places, and yes, all of them are rude. I can't even say New York is the worst, yeah. New York is the worst.
New York is bad.
Definitely the worst in New York. And New Yorkers are notoriously short on patience for slow walkers. tourists and people who wear backpacks, they would just knock you over.
Well, that's why they were so
Seriously.
rude to me whenever I'm been there.
Seriously. Or if you have like 3 things, oh, can I just go in front of you and check out? No!
They're very nasty.
They're very nasty. But I'll just say one thing about 2020 before I give it to you. 2020 will be a year of changes and transitions, physical reality disturbances, yes, more than we have, and surprisingly, anger.
And if you have a expansions.com membership, less than $1 a day, you can hear more fascinating facts about 2020 and other
Well,
things that we don't put on the podcast because we don't have time in the
Yeah,
few minutes
because
we have here.
January 1 will be my blog about that, so read it.
Yeah, get your membership before January 1, then you'll know.
Yeah.
All right, so I have several stories which I found, as always, very fascinating, which is why I share them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is what you may have seen about the Pentagon warning military members that DNA kits pose personal and operational risks. Did you see that?
No, why?
Because I personally never really cared for those things, and anytime they start, selling it or going global or whatever, there's always some kind of agenda. So this was very fascinating to me personally because I just knew I didn't want to do it. So it says the Pentagon is advising members of the military not to use consumer DNA kits. They say that the information collected by private companies could pose security risks.
Yeah, because the military isn't giving you a security risk on your DNA.
It says the boom in popularity of such kits has raised ethical and legal issues since some companies share this data with law enforcement or they sell it to third parties. Apparently, the Department of Defense is now saying that exposing sensitive genetic information to outside parties poses personal and operational risk to all service members. And the memo, which says some DNA kit companies have been targeting military personnel with discounts, trying to get them to sign up.
But they already have their DNA.
Well, you have to listen because to me this was a fascinating article. These direct-to-consumer genetic tests are largely unregulated and could expose personal and genetic information and potentially create unintended security consequences and increased risk to the joint force and mission. And then there's broader concerns about the biometrics like DNA, fingerprints, and facial recognition, which have been crucial to help the U.S. identify potential enemies, but also expose U.S. national security personnel to identification by other countries.
I don't know what that means.
Well, that's because you got to listen. U.S. intelligence officials are increasingly concerned about how DNA testing will affect their ability to operate worldwide. Because of this, I didn't know. Maybe you know. They said that apparently at some international airports, they actually do DNA swab tests before they let you on a plane.
I've never seen. I've been everywhere, and that's never happened.
This is what it says, and it says that that's one factor in a decline in CIA personnel using aliases while traveling abroad because they take the DNA test and then they know who they are.
Oh, that's
So
yes.
that's what they're saying, and they're saying foreign governments do that, and so it puts them all at risk. And covert operations, that's what it says.
Listen, I've been in every communist country, every Muslim country. Never happened ever.
I'm just telling you, this is what they said. So they said that the foreign governments with suspicions about someone operating inside their country could use a commercial genetic database to unmask the person. It says, in a world in which a few stray cells can be used to identify a person, there is no such thing as a covert action and no such thing as anonymity.
I don't have any stray cells. They all behave.
I hope so. There is increased concern in the scientific community that outside parties are exploiting the use of genetic DNA for questionable purposes, including mass surveillance and the ability to track individuals without their authorization or awareness.
Oh, because that's not going to happen anyway,
No.
and isn't happening.
There's another thing that's interesting. Apparently, the Defense Department has its own massive repository of DNA.
What a shock! It's not like
Yes.
New Yorkers are rude.
So following the 1991 Gulf War, the Pentagon began a mandatory DNA collection program for members of the military, and they're claiming it's in order to identify remains of anybody killed in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
They also collect DNA samples from terrorists and others detained on the battlefield. And this is all fascinating because it verifies what we already know, but they're telling you. So now the New York Times apparently recently revealed, after bin Laden's death, that the CIA had organized a phony vaccination program in Pakistan in an attempt to collect DNA from the compound where bin Laden was hiding. And earlier this year, the Pentagon said it used DNA testing to confirm the death of Abu Bakr
You
al-Baghdadi,
better watch your language.
the leader of the Islamic State group. The U.S.
Who's
government...
been reported dead several times over the
The
years.
U.S. government claims that they collected his DNA when he was detained by coalition forces in Iraq more than a decade ago, and that's how they recognize his remains.
Right.
His remains. And the
Several times.
chief of naval operations said at a public event that DNA from consumer testing kits might be used in the future for tailorable biological weapons.
Listen, it's already
But
happening.
they're telling you, this is the fascinating thing
Yes,
to
but they're
me.
making it sound like it doesn't happen yet, but it's already happened for decades.
You and I know that, and our readers who are members of expansions.com know that, but the general person out there doesn't realize it. So the fact they're telling people, to me, is incredible. So I found that article fascinating. So then on to the U.S. Space Force, which I also find fascinating.
I'm going to apply to
that they're now telling you about that, which we know is already out
Yeah,
there.
but this is a new one.
Well, we don't know.
I do know it's a new
I
one.
think it's another iteration of what already exists. China is attacking the newly formed U.S. Space Force as a direct threat to outer space peace and security.
And also to the Chinese delivery system.
Is that right?
The Chinese food service.
Yeah. They're deeply concerned and resolutely opposed to the decision, and added that Washington undermined global strategic balance and stability. So I found that fascinating. And now this is, you might consider this old news, but it's fascinating, so I'm throwing it out there for you. Because this happened supposedly on Christmas Day, December 25th and 26th.
What?
Okay, twin monster cyclones rolled across the North Pacific on Christmas Day.
See, here's the thing.
Yes,
That's,
tell us.
That's because I used
We
to be
discussed
a
this.
meteorologist. I used to study that and be that of the National Weather Service. And there are no cyclones in the Pacific. They're called typhoons. North America, Atlantic has hurricanes. Pacific has typhoons. Indian Ocean has cyclones.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that they call it twin monster cyclones.
Which is not true.
In the North Atlantic on Christmas Day.
No, North Pacific, you said.
No, North Atlantic.
North Atlantic. Oh, that's even more bizarre
Right,
because there
that's
are no
what I'm-
cyclones in the Atlantic.
Right, that's my point. And what's also interesting, they kept referring to the twins on Christmas Day, the twins on Christmas Day.
Yes,
so
Thomas
if you
and Jesus.
have read our books, this one, well, the new one's coming out soon because it's almost ready to go to the printer. The one, Revelations of Time, Space, History, and God. That one has the Gospel of Thomas. This one is the one you want to start with. And then while I'm here, I'll remind you about the template of God mind. This is the second. The third one, which will have the Gospel of Thomas, and a lot of interesting secrets in there, will be out right
finished
after the
that
first
today,
of the
actually,
year.
the editing.
Well, it's a second edit because we've been to the layout
Ah.
first, and then we've had to re-edit because we have to make sure it's
Just get
what
it
needs to
out
say.
there.
So, interestingly enough, after they talked, then they went on to say in this article, the twins are trapped between two ridges, so twins trapped between the two ridges, and then they went on with December 26th, and they said, an update, the dynamic pattern across North Atlantic has produced twins on Christmas, two very large cyclones, blah, blah, blah. So, very interesting when you know how to read the clues.
Or the codes.
That's a good way to put it. So this was interesting. I actually had two different people over the holidays talk to me about blood. One person sent a thing and another person said something. So for that reason, I'm going to bring that up because I think that's interesting since blood has a lot to do with a lot of things. Okay, so very interesting things you may or may not know. Because I don't donate blood because I don't want to get it out. So if you don't
And
put
I
it
don't
in,
because I don't have any.
so I didn't know this, that the donation process takes about 1.5 hours for whole blood and 2 hours for plasma to donate. Did you know that?
I don't have plasma.
And it says it's safe to donate whole blood every 8 weeks, as your body needs between 4 and 6 weeks to complete the replacement process. Now, what I'm telling you now is going to be important for what I'm telling you later, so listen up. Now, the U.S., believe it or not, is a major exporter, providing up to 70% of the world's plasma. And most of it goes to European countries. Didn't know all that
They don't
stuff.
have their own plasma?
This is very, to me, it's bizarre because there's a lot of people over there, more than in the U.S.
No.
Yeah,
No.
Europe and all that area. We're just, a little state over, a little bit on the continent. It says the Red Cross manages 40% of the U.S. supply. Now listen to this. Every day they have to collect 13,000 donations of whole blood every day. And there's your number, 13 and blood. 2,500 platelet donations every day. But despite the shortages in the U.S., we're shipping it over there. So when they're telling you there's a blood shortage, they're shipping it overseas. It accounts for well over 2% of total U.S. exports by value.
Really?
Which is worth more than the export of all corn and soy products that we export here from the Midwest.
That means there's more vampires in Europe.
So to me that's pretty amazing. And you always hear there's a blood shortage, you've got to donate,
Probably
and so on
goes
and
to
so
George
forth.
Soros' refrigerator.
Now, here we go. This is what a lot of people, there's so many interesting things that I found in my little research here. So it says that the U.S. allows people to sell their blood. So they are now the third largest exporter, with global sales skyrocketing from $5 billion to $20 billion in 15 years. However, the way they get their blood is by targeting the low socioeconomic groups in large cities across the U.S.
Yeah,
And
because that would be good quality blood.
In Cleveland, the majority of donors make more than 1/3 of their money from donating plasma.
Yeah, and it's all full of cocaine and alcohol and AIDS and God
There's
knows
claiming,
what else.
well, they're claiming that the U.S. blood is better than overseas blood because
That's pretty sad.
That's why I said this information is fascinating.
No, it's not true probably.
It's true, and it's fascinating. It says the centers are never in a good part of town because you can donate,
Well,
right? You can donate.
who wants their blood?
But a lot of people donate, right? So not only do a lot
Might
of
as well
people
drink
donate,
gasoline.
so they can fill their quota and ship it overseas, they put up these centers where they actually buy blood in poor neighborhoods, and it says the people who show up are a mix of disabled, working poor, homeless, single parents, and college students.
And so what kind of blood's that going to be?
It says that this is the most reliable income that they have because your job can fire you at any time when you're on this level of society, but you always have blood.
I mean, how much could they make?
Selling your blood doesn't count as a job or income when it comes to determining disability benefits, food stamps, or unemployment
Well, it's
eligibility.
income. It's income.
That they don't make it, so people do it.
Yes, I know
purposefully.
why they're doing that, but that's not fair.
Right, that's my point. This is really bad. It's a source of money for the people who have absolutely nothing else. Now listen to
Why don't
this.
they just get a freaking job?
Because they don't have to declare their income, they can have all their
Well, I'm
benefits.
sorry, that's just wrong.
It's the people, the companies who are going in and making use of this
First of
low-income
all,
group.
if you're a European, I don't care where they're sending it, and you're getting this blood, you know where it came from, you're getting poisoned.
Well, that's the way it is anywhere. You don't know where your blood comes from. That's why if you ever have an operation, God forbid, you ask your family members or people you know to come and give blood for you. That's why you do that. Anyway, it says that losing plasma 2 times weekly. Remember earlier they said that you can donate, how
Every
often you
8
can
weeks.
donate.
Yeah.
But losing plasma 2 times weekly lowers protein count in the blood, and many donors have an increased risk of liver and kidney dysfunction and more infections.
Okay, here's a clue. They already have that.
And so they're making them worse. They're really killing these people. Those who regularly donate report feeling chronically fatigued and some border on anemia.
No, they are anemic.
So it says payment methods were described as predatory because the first time you go in it's like $75. Then after that, then they reduce it.
So you can't live on that anyway.
Well, if you go in all the time and you have nothing,
Then they go right to the cocaine dealer and get that.
and you have nothing. And then it says that the centers are kept at 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit to protect the plasma. So then they put this blood, this cooled blood, back into their body, into the donors. It says it feels as painful and feels as if ice is being inserted into the body. Then it also claims in this article that clinics along the U.S.-Mexican border, that there's 43 of them down there, and that the people regularly cross on temporary visas to give blood.
But they're allowed to do that on temporary visas.
That's what they claim.
Oh my goodness.
So then, okay, now so that's like that part of it. Then we go into the Red Cross because a lot of people support the Red Cross. The Red Cross
It's a scam.
does not pay their donors, but they sell the blood. So even you go to the Red Cross blood drives and all this, And so not these ones for profit, not where you get paid, where you think you're doing a good thing for your country, and
No, they're not.
they're selling your blood. So apparently on the official American Red Cross website, what happens to donated blood, the outline implies that the distribution to hospitals is being given away freely, and simply states under the distribution heading the blood is available to be shipped to hospitals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you think you're doing really great things. But the reality is that blood is sold to hospitals, biomedical companies, academic centers, pharmaceutical companies, and pharmaceutical companies. So anyway, it just goes on and on.
vampires.
And that I believe. So if you're donating blood, you need to think like 60 billion times, because what's going on is wrong. Totally wrong.
Red Cross is a big scam. 90% of what they take in never gets to the people, ever.
And it said that they take care of approximately 40% of the nation's blood supply. So I just think it's a really big scam out there that most people aren't aware of. I wasn't, so thank you for those of you who brought this to my attention. And speaking of taking advantage of poor people, did you know that now in Britain that food banks outnumber McDonald's, Burger King, and Starbucks? There's over 2,000 food banks in Britain, and that outnumbers these other things. So that means there's poor people out there.
Well, Britain, they have no teeth anyway.
Well, it's a shame. And speaking of things that they do to poor people, did you hear about the Iowa facility accused of human experiments on people with disabilities?
No.
The Iowa Department of Public Safety is now part of an investigation that's claiming the residents of Glenwood Resource Center, which treats intellectually and physically disabled Iowans, including children, about 250 residents, were subject to human experiments. And so the DHS Director Kelly Garcia requested support from the Department of Public Safety to assist in reviewing these allegations. And the U.S. Department of Justice is involved, and it says that they're specifically looking into claims that the facility performs sexual arousal and optimal hydration studies on residents. Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's abuse.
It's worse than abuse. So they're looking into it. The governor's involved, the federal investigators are involved, Department of Justice, Human Services, the state representatives are involved, and people are up in arms over this. So this is an ongoing investigation.
In
But
Iowa, of all places.
yes, and we've told you a billion times that people are always experimented on, and it's usually those who are underprivileged, just like the blood bank thing. So it's
Don't they experiment on
crazy.
corn? There's plenty of that in
I think that's a much better idea.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, and then you have heard about the Extinction Rebellion, which they're now calling XR.
What does that mean?
The Extinction Rebellion over in most of it I think is in Europe. I haven't looked on the website, but there were some Extinction Rebellion activists apparently who glued themselves to trains.
So they become extinct.
Okay, now the interesting thing about this,
That's brilliant.
two things.
That'll solve a lot of problems.
Because if you know, if been following our podcast, I've been talking about this 3 thing, and I try not to bring it up so much because it's everywhere, but you'll notice it in the news. So there were 3 Extinction Rebellion people, and they called them the trio. Well, anyway, the thing that's most interesting about this,
I hope Greta was one of them.
now the trio maintained during the trial that their actions were not criminal. What's interesting is the judge says that it's a noble cause. And so,
Just glue yourself to a train? How is that going to help the world?
well, I don't know. But he says that they are criminals because they broke the law. But the thing that is interesting is he said it was a noble cause. So who decides what's a noble
The
cause?
judge is a moron.
So
What is it? What country is
therefore,
he from?
this is the UK.
Oh, well, duh.
London, I think.
Hello.
So my point is that who decides what's a noble cause? For example, abortion. If the judge says, oh, it's a noble cause, because you killed somebody,
Well, they do say that.
I'm just telling you that, so therefore he didn't give him prison. And the jury actually found the defendants guilty, but the foreman added it was with regret. Well, I think if they're out gluing themselves to things, that's a
When
really
they glue themselves
a
to
silly
the
thing
judge's
to do.
car.
It's a very silly thing to do, and it's a silly thing to do. So yes, they're criminals. You shouldn't be doing that and disrupting people. And then this is just, I've talked about this before, but I'm because it's in the news again, and because there's not as much news at this holiday time, I found it interesting. I'm just reporting on about King Carl Gustaf of Sweden. Remember I told you that he stripped his grandchildren's royal
Oh, he should
titles.
be punished for that.
He brought that out again in his Christmas speech in claiming it was to help them carve out their own future. Well, for me, if I was a member of the royal family and I got my title stripped, I would be very upset. But he said that this happened because they're under pressure to cap the cost of the monarchy.
But why don't they stop taking in immigrants?
Because they said last year they had a 12 million pound. Is that what they have in the
No, they use
That's-
euros.
No, isn't that the pound sign?
Yes, but because it's UK news.
Yes, so it's 12 million pounds, so that's a lot of euros and a lot of US dollars. Anyway, so because of that, he stripped them of their title. But the other thing,
Kroner, actually.
they're still going to retain their titles of Duke and Duchess, so that made me feel a little better.
Oh, I'm so happy for
Yeah,
them.
but one thing I keep meaning to tell you and I keep forgetting about is this thing with Prince Andrew and all that. Okay, so this is my thing that I just wanted to bring out is that this is a show, and the reason you know it's a show is because Prince Andrew and all those people have bodyguards. So if they really want the truth, they would be questioning their bodyguards.
Not if the bodyguards were paid off.
Well, they still have to, they're still going to do something. So they're putting the pressure on the prince, and that's what they're showing in public.
You know what I found funny?
What?
Because today there was a story about Prince Harry and Meghan
Right.
were taking a break from their
I know.
royal duties. Like, what are their royal duties? Like,
They all talk about
waving
that, yes.
and like visiting
Traveling
people.
and being
yeah, what?
entertained
What a
and-
hard. They need a break from that.
They talk
what
about
a rough
that, too.
life.
The queen does that. She takes
Seriously.
her break from her royal duties.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like really
doing what?
right, waving and collecting,
Keeping
counting,
her throne warm.
counting their money and their jewels. Okay, and then now this one actually I thought was kind of a nice story. This was about Lindsey Vonn, who's 34 and widely considered one of the best skiers of all time, and PK Subban, 34, who plays for the NHL's New Jersey Devils. They've been engaged since August. However, at Christmas time, Lindsey surprised her fiance with his own ring, his own engagement ring on Christmas Day. Now, I thought that was a nice thing because I think she said men should get engagement rings
You gave
too.
me an engagement ring.
And I think engagement rings are really nice.
I do too,
Now,
especially if I get them every year.
Yeah, now, personally, again, I think that's if it's a thing to help put more money in the pockets of the jewelers. But I know as a woman, it's fun to get an engagement ring. So I think as a man, it's nice to have an engagement ring too.
I like it.
Yeah, so I like that idea actually. So that was a positive. And then going on to some, interesting news about the Baha'i faith.
Yeah, I've been to their temple in Haifa.
I haven't, because I've never been to Haifa either. I haven't been to Washington, D.C. or Haifa.
No?
No. Baha'i faith teaches the oneness of all world religions, and believe it or not, it's among the fastest growing religions in the world.
Really?
Yes. It was founded in 1844 in Iran, and it includes the Jewish Star of David,
Right.
the Christian cross, and the Star and Crescent of Islam.
Yeah, it combines all three.
Yes. And they believe in this progressive revelation that the teachings of the great spiritual teachers, but they had their place in their time and place. So they believe that Baha'i is the religion of the future.
And they have the most beautiful gardens
Yeah.
in their temple in Haifa.
And they don't really have hierarchies. That's what they say anyway. It's a community working toward justice by focusing on practicing instead of preaching. And there are about 5 and 6 million Baha'i worldwide.
Not that many.
Yeah, and they said there are 8 continental Baha'i temples, which make it the second most geographically diverse religion in the world behind Christianity.
Yeah, but there's only 7 continents. How
Well, it
could
says
there be 8?
8. So maybe there's one in Antarctica that we don't know about.
That's
I don't
only
know.
7.
No?
There's only
Well,
7
it said
continents.
8 continental Baha'i
Well, someone
temples.
didn't do their math.
That's
or
what it says in the article. It's got to be
explain
true.
that.
If it's in writing, it's true. And I wrote it, so therefore it's true.
Well, maybe
Anyway.
you had dyslexia or something.
Maybe. And in your new book, the third one, the Revelations book, didn't you talk about Aksum?
Aksum in Ethiopia.
Yes. So, and believe it or not, they must have been reading your book
Not
because
published yet.
well, we know they spy. So, buried Christian and pagan basilica was discovered in Ethiopia's lost kingdom of Aksum, just here recently. And they want people to know about it because Aksum was a powerful region from about 80 BC until AD 825.
Yes, and in my new book I describe how it was actually a Hebrew kingdom.
Yes, but it's interesting because they say in here, the church was found at Beta Samadhi, which to me sounds like a Hebrew word, but it said that it's It says that people broadly recognize ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and ancient Greece, but what they don't know is that Aksumite civilization was one of the ancient world's most powerful civilization and one of the earliest. They don't mention its Jewish heritage, Hebrew heritage. But guess what they found? They found a cross, and they have an image of it, and it's actually a Magdalene/Templar cross.
Oh, there you go.
So very fascinating. If you haven't, read that
As it
article.
came from Israel.
Yes, and then in Washington State, my homeland, I was talking about
Not
the
for long,
earthquakes.
because soon it's going to be under volcanic ash.
It says two things I learned here. First of all, I didn't know there was a National UFO Reporting Center. Did you?
Who cares?
I don't know. National UFO Reporting Center says that in Washington State in 2019, so far there have been almost 4,000 UFO reports. I did not know that.
Well, didn't they also legalize pot?
What does that have to do with anything?
Hello.
So I want to remind people about this because this, I'll read just a minute from the back, that Agnes told Janet's father how she was taken to Mount Rainier and shown highly evolved spiritual people. Agnes saw these people shot and the bullets passed right through them. Mount Rainier is an extremely sacred and spiritual place to the indigenous natives as a fitting background for Agnes's involvement with Chief White Owl, her own indigenous spiritual guide. And remember, in 1947, Kenneth Arnold filed the first well-known report of UFOs over Mount Rainier. So if you don't have this book,
Yes,
this
and in the
is
January
fascinating.
class, I'm going to tell you what those UFOs really were.
So fascinating, Mount Rainier, UFOs, interesting. And our new books,
I gotta show
finally.
them. Right, I'll hold one, you hold the other. I'll put them together, because look, people, what do you notice?
No, it's the wrong way. It's the wrong way.
Oh.
It's like this.
Okay, now what do you notice?
Okay, just hold them up so they can see.
Well, you gotta
Take
hold
your
it
fingers
straight.
away. Take your fingers away.
Man, yelling at me. You're
There
aggressing
you
me.
go. There you go. Now you can see. Right? Fascinating. If you go with us on our June Clear Health and Healing trip, you are going to be hiking on this exact mountain.
Except I'm not allowed to go.
Because you have to stay home and take care of all the
Take care
animals
of everybody.
that you got me. So this is the ancient path of healing. And you can walk the same path that the ancient apostles walked. Clear Health and Healing, June 2020. We're going to be setting the dates here within the next couple of weeks. So if you don't have these books are now available for pre-order, shipping beginning January 3rd.
And we'll be going through these books in the January class.
Amongst other things. So I know you have some fascinating things. But so be sure you get your books. We've already had a lot of pre-orders coming in. And last time, our last books, these two, we sold out really fast, then we had to get them reprinted. So be sure you get your order in before we get sold out on the first printing. And then hopefully within I'm hoping within a month or less, we will have the third one in this series available. So if you don't have these, that's good. These two are big books, over 1,000 pages, so we can't fit any more than this in one envelope. So if you order more books, unfortunately, you got to pay more postage. So we don't have anything to do about that end of it.
You can thank the post office for that.
Yeah, so January class, we've still got a couple of spaces. I don't know, yeah, I do have my affirmations book. Remember, the webinars start up January 8th. So if you want to get in on it, we've got a great group of people going, and you can join us at any time, once every month when we start our new session. So sign up for that immediately.
Now, hopefully, you will all watch the webinar I just did with Dr. Charles McWilliams and Dr. Carlos Jaramillo about taxation, protection, and religious law, colonial medicine, and so on. It was a very fascinating webinar. It just, we did it today, and it's already released.
So
hopefully that'll be posted on our SMOC
all right,
site.
so we're going to get a link to that. Is that correct?
I sent you the link.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, because you don't see the things that I send you, but I sent you the
Because
link.
I've been too busy working.
Yeah, because I'm just laying around, smoking pot.
Now you've told
Yeah.
them.
And so that, and then I also describe I'll be arriving in Puerto Rico February 29th for investigations from the former federal prosecutor and legal advisor to SMOC and expansions actually, and who will be showing me where they found hundreds of Hebrew tablets in Puerto Rico ancient ones. And then I'll be on my way to Ecuador from there. March 6, 7, 8 seminar in Quito. And then big event in Malta, April 17, 18, 19. But actually, I was just found out today there's a tour on the 16th to some of the fortress sites and cathedrals. And there'll be a huge event, many royalty of Europe coming, the Archduchess of Austria, among other, King of Papua New Guinea, many people coming.
Yeah, so we're going to have all this information posted on the website. We're just putting everything together, and over the holidays, sometimes it's challenging to do it, but right after the first of the year will all be posted on the website, so keep your eye on the website, please.
And then it's on to Portugal, where I will be doing more research with someone very important, possibly for the fourth book in that series. And then to Turkey, where not only Istanbul, but to Göbekli Tepe, the 13,000-year-old city in the southeastern part of Turkey, not far from the Syrian border. But we'll be going there for a couple of days and doing some investigations. And then you mentioned Italy already. You mentioned the new book.
Yeah, and the thing I want to tell you is this, one of our biggest expenses is airfare from here to Europe. But if you're already over there,
It's not so
it's
expensive.
not too expensive to get to these events. So if you're interested, you need to sign up and register as soon as that's made available, or always contact Patricia, customer support at expansions.com. And as soon as we have the information, she'll get it to you so you can get your name on the list. So sometimes people lose out because the dates pass them by or they get filled. So be sure, if you're interested, at least contact Patricia, customer support at expansions.com. Be sure you check the website, expansions.com, and get your membership, because we talk about these things amongst our members all the time, expansions.com.
In the January class, I will be going in detail, not only about these 1,000 pages of medical books that Janet and I have done, 15 years of work that they are.
At least
And more probably.
our life.
Yeah, it took about 15 years of editing, re-editing, rewriting, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to give you details, excruciating details on the secret space program, what's going on underneath Antarctica, all the things that I have never told you before, I will be revealing because now is the time. And I will also be giving you the 72 names of God, the codes, what their functions are, and how to use them. This will not be recorded, and I don't think I will put that ever in a book.
No, and also we're going to be discussing how to use those 72 names of God on our radionics machines.
Yeah, so you need to be here if you want it.
Yeah, so
And there's
very
no excuse.
fascinating work. So
I don't want to hear about any excuse. Either you can be here or you're not interested, period. That's the way it is.
there's nobody that does what we do. We will tell you that right now.
And so that's it. And so
That's it.
happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody. We appreciate your kind comments and your support and your sharing and your likes and your support of expansions.com, because that allows us to do our research, so in turn we can share what we find out with you.
So thank you, and I'll see you next year.
Bye-bye.